Well, what we're facing today is a black swan event that is probably once in a lifetime, maybe even more. And it's unlike uh, the global financial crisis or other crises that we've had in the recent uh, past, because it is starting in Main Street, not in Wall Street. And it is unusual in the sense that everything is on standstill. Even during wars, business continues. In fact, production capacity is ramped up to be able to support war effort. But unlike those wars, this type of war that we're engaged in right now, we're basically forced to be on a lockdown, on a standstill. And therefore, my advice to finance ministers is really first think out of the box and be clear in your messaging, and make sure that you cut across the different silos in your government, because your most important currency is your own credibility, so that they will start believing in what you're doing, in the efforts that you're trying to do. So, for example, standstill. No? You want to make sure that you support businesses also that are most affected by the standstill. You must also support the people that are most vulnerable to this standstill, those who are on a daily wage earning basis, to make sure that we are the country that you're running is able to come out of this standstill as well as can be. This standstill can only be kept for a short time. I don't think, because if we're worried now about the collapse of health systems, if we keep the standstill too long, we're faced with the collapse of the economy, which can then in turn over the medium term result to the collapse of the very thing that we're worried about, the health system. So to support, to be clear in your support of business, for example, make sure that there's adequate liquidity to work closely with the central bank of your country to make sure that you prevent defaults and bankruptcies by giving leeway, making sure that the laws allow leeway for businesses to be able to stretch their payment, to be able to help them in terms of paying wages. And this, many countries are doing this, especially the well-off countries, Germany, Singapore, and others stepped up in actually paying part of the wages of business. In the Philippines, we were already supporting the bottom of the pyramid before this, no? On a conditional basis. But now we have to expand this. So because a lot of people who were probably not in the lower 40%, was probably in the next 40%, suddenly have no work. And so you need to make sure that you're able to support this. This crisis that we're in is also offers a silver lining. And in fact, that the experience and the lessons that we should learn comes at a very expensive cost. And therefore, the other thing that I advise my, the finance ministers of the world is to take advantage of this, to be able to leapfrog in terms of the challenge that the digitalization is, and the opportunity that it presents to us. This crisis has basically pressed the fast forward button on the future coming to us in terms of digitalization. So people now are much more, used to dealing with banks online, ordering their groceries online, getting things telehealth online, and therefore government must also be on this basis. This is a unique opportunity. So, for example, it might take time if they approach it the traditional way. I think they should be approached on a public-private partnership, because in most countries of the world, the telco infrastructure is quite well developed, and the penetration of these telcos is almost to the whole population. And therefore, if we are, for example, in the case of the Philippines, we don't have digital IDs yet. One way is to work with telcos and use their infrastructure so that everyone can be given digital IDs, no? And that should facilitate actually the distribution of the cash support. That's taking a long time to distribute now under the traditional way, and it's also subject to a lot of pilferage and losses. This opportunity is quite unique. The other is to really remove red tape, no? And make it easier to do business and to be able to resume business. In fact, after the COVID lockdowns, to really fast track the restarting of the economies of the country, of the world, there should be a holiday on regulations and red tape, and just allow everyone to restart. And actually, governments can also help out by making sure that they offer guarantees, because one of the things that's going to happen as a result of the lockdowns and of this crisis is that the credit quality, the bankability of a lot of institutions and companies will deteriorate, and therefore banks will probably hesitate to lend, even though their central banks have provided the liquidity. So that's where national governments can offer guarantees of loans, and work closely with the central bank so that the loans issued by banks can be taken out, so that there's almost unlimited liquidity to support this restart. So clearly, for finance ministers, they cannot just lean on what was done in the past. They really have to be more imaginative, think out of the box, be courageous enough to try new things. But your key currency is your credibility, so that you can convince your legislature, your political leadership to support your initiatives. And in the end, if you are very firm in your moves and you're ahead of the problem, it can cost you a little less than if you're always behind the curve in trying to deal with the crisis. Well, for those with very limited resources, they should really work closely with multilaterals, the World Banks, the IMFs, the African Development Bank, the Asian Development Bank. In fact, I think about 25 countries have already sought aid and support to get access to quick release funds that will allow them to be able to support the bottom of the pyramid. The impact of the COVID crisis is disproportionate, with the poor suffering much more. And therefore, the bias of our action would have to be to support the bottom of the pyramid. This is crucial if we are to maintain social stability. But the distribution of the support cannot be what has been done, for example, when there are typhoons or droughts or natural calamities, the way that's been done for ages. And this is where we really have to take the leap in terms of technology, leap of faith, to use what technology offers us now, so that the poor can get to the needy as quickly as possible. At the same time, government cannot take upon itself to be the one to repackage, or hand for example, food, if it's food that they want to distribute. I think government must take advantage of what the private sector has started to build the past few years, its last mile distribution capacity, as a result of the rapid development of e-commerce. And again, I always like to look at the silver lining of crisis. In most countries, the tax-paying database is very narrow. This is actually an opportunity to broaden your tax database, so that as the economy is able to recover, your ability to raise the necessary revenues to support further efforts to strengthen the economy will be improved. And again, we have to, the finance minister should put aside first the traditional worry about fiscal sustainability, or the what the credit rating agencies will do if you increase your deficit unnecessarily. This is like a patient being in an emergency room. You first must do everything in your power to keep the patient alive, then and then work on dealing with the root causes, and ultimately bring it back to better health. That is the mindset that we have to bring to this situation. Again, I believe that the private sector in most countries is a major component of the economy. And I think we should, the finance minister should tap the private sector to fast track the recovery. One would be to fast track infrastructure investments, again, working closely with multilaterals to do this on a PPP basis. Two, again, encourage entrepreneurship in the country by making it easy to do business in the country. So maybe declare, as I said, regulation holiday. Make it easy for everyone to be entrepreneurial. Third, to make it easy to get access to funding. Fourth, try and make the country more attractive to foreign investments. This is where you really have to put away your bureaucratic hat and really put on your entrepreneurial hat, because if not, countries can go into a vicious cycle of deficit and poverty and sickness, and it would be hard to get back up. That is why it's important that these lockdowns be as short as possible. Obviously, has to be weighed with health risk. These are the most difficult trade-offs, decisions one has to make. But I believe after a certain point, if you keep the economy on standstill, then in the end, we may end up getting hit twice, not just by the virus, but the resulting poverty and increase in illness, and ultimately death as a result of increases in the numbers of people who are back in poverty. There's various estimates, but people are saying that it will go, over 1 billion people might end up getting back into poverty, and that's a very sad situation. Well, for the longest time, everyone's saying that digitalization is still out there in the future, although it's been accelerating the past few years. As I said, this crisis has pressed the fast forward button on digitalization, on e-commerce, on distance learning, on telehealth, on almost everything that technology affords us. So this, I think, will be the opportunity for governments to also take that leap to actually go into e-government. The multilaterals and other multilateral organizations can actually facilitate this process, not just with funding, but with the sharing of best practices, so that countries do not have to reinvent the process of digitalization in terms of what software, infrastructure, and processes to use, so that you can cut short the whole process. So multilaterals, hopefully, will not just think of themselves as arbitrating, intermediating money, or funds, but they're actually also intermediating knowledge, where they can become the bridge for the lesser developed countries to be able to shortcut this process of taking a leap to a more digital e-government.